Can you tell me your name, spell your name for me, and tell me your class?
My name is Stephen Brooks, spelled Stephen. It's important, Stevens, and Brooks is Brooks. I was in the rowing class, so to speak, of 1970, although I didn't actually graduate until 1972.
Okay. Um, Tell me who the coach was when you first started rowing and your impressions of it.
Well, we had freshmen. As a freshman, my coach was Ted Washburn, who was himself just recently graduated from college, from Harvard, and he was very intense and very driven and very mercurial, and we had a very fast freshman boat. Then, of course, for in the upper class years, sophomore through senior year, I wrote for Harry Parker. That was in 68, 69, and 70. And my impressions were, he's a fabulous coach, wonderful coach. And we had very fast boats then, too. And he has a phenomenal talent of getting a lot out of the oarsmen and getting the right combination together and making boats go very fast. I was just thinking about this the other day about how hard it is for people to really rise to the top these days. It's a very, very competitive league. And essentially back in our day, we'd show up and do what Harry told us and we'd win. So that was the great part of that experience.
Over here. Can you share any anecdotes about Harry? Anything bigger that might come to mind?
None that. I remember we had the good fortune to be in the Olympic Games in 1968, and we had a lot of troubles, and a lot of boating changes and all, and we had essentially one good race, and he congratulated me on the race. I was a stroke in that particular race, and that was quite something. I mean, he was very, very sparse with his not that he didn't make it clear when he appreciated when the boat was going well and when everyone had committed a lot and done a lot in the races, but that to me was a fairly important point. Anecdotes of amusing stories about Harry, I don't really have a huge store of them. Obviously a presence, a very significant presence, and makes his will known, and he's really an extraordinary coach.
So you were the stroke.
In that we had some illness. I was actually rode in the 3-seat for most of the season, but our stroke was having trouble with altitude sickness, and so I ended up stroking for 2 of the races in Mexico City.
What do you think drives young men and women now, but as well, to make this kind of Herculean efforts?
Well, I think it's Herculean, I suppose, in some sense, but you figure at one level it's a couple hours a day, 3 hours a day, doing something that they like. I think most people who are willing to commit the time to it certainly have some devotion to the sport, maybe not initially, but certainly after a while. There's something very addictive about the sport, the feel of a boat and making a boat move through the water and doing it with others. That's really pretty special. But I think, you have a lot of very ambitious and talented kids in these programs, and they typically, when they get committed to something, they really do it. It might not be rowing, or it might be, sports, but I don't think it's all that surprising that kids like this end up getting really excited about something and committing themselves to it. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of physical work, obviously, But tremendous benefits. Obviously you're fit, very fit, but I think benefits in terms of understanding about what your limits are, working with a team. It's an enjoyable experience. If people didn't enjoy the training with their boatmates, they wouldn't be doing it, and it's a very enjoyable experience from that standpoint, certainly.
Your son is a stroke.
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it's very gratifying, obviously. It's probably makes me a little bit more nervous watching the races than I would otherwise. I certainly, as an alum, have tried to follow the crew, and it's obviously a little bit more nerve-wracking now. But no, I think he's done a very good job, and it's very gratifying, and I think he's getting a lot out of it, and he's done a good job. So.
What is that enormous thing?
Just traffic on that, yeah.
Somebody with a tractor. Can you any anecdotes about your, not necessarily Harry, but interesting things that happened to you along the way?
Basically here at Red Top, or
Or just, as part of the Harbor crew?
well, it's I think certainly the most important in terms of my experience is the most significant one was the Olympic Games in '68, and we had a very good boat, and we raced at Long Beach out in California, and ended up beating Penn by about 4 inches. It was a very good race, and then we went on to Mexico City. So I think that's without any question the most significant rowing experience. I was a sophomore at the time, and so coming back, it was a little hard to get back in the swing of things, but it was I think that's probably the most significant. It's to a certain extent, so many years out, it's a little bit of a blur, but just a blur of wonderful positive emotions about this place, as ratty as it is, and just experiences over in the varsity quarters where we would hang out between the workouts and just sitting on the porch, watching the river, and enjoying the company of the other rowers. Certainly a major part of it. And I don't really have any. I mean, there are countless little incidents, but I don't think they rise to sort of an amusing anecdote kind of level.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
What do you think is so special about the Harbor Regatta?
Well, on the one hand, the obvious answer is it's been around for years. I mean, we're coming up to the 150th anniversary of the first race, which was whenever that is. The 100th rowing was in 1962, I believe, 1965 perhaps. But so one obvious answer is just the tradition that's been around for a while. But even so, even without the tradition, and in fact, the people who are down here think of it. I mean, I think they carry the tradition as some of the baggage that they bring to the race. But the race itself, just 4 miles, it's a very long row, and it's just head to head with another boat all the way down. And so the training that's required, the kind of emotional commitment to that, you're going to be exhausted, and you just certainly hope the boat isn't too close to you at the end. So I think that it's just that sort of it's not a Mount Everest sort of undertaking, but it's of that sort. It's a very, very significant race. It's not from a rower's standpoint. It's not just 2,000 meters, 1.25 miles, which is over in 6 minutes or less. So I think that in itself is a major part of it. But surely the experience, and the experience is here in this spot. I always have a phenomenally warm feeling for this place. Like I feel like I'm coming home every time I come back here. So that's definitely part of it too.
What do you think makes you feel that way?
Oh, I just the extremely pleasant memories at one level, and continuing memories. Now with children and also just coming back. We've from time to time we've done alumni races down here, so getting some of the old folks back together to race. Phenomenally positive time in one's life, and experiences were very, very enjoyable, very gratifying.
Anything you can remember of the races that you were involved with here? Anything stand out, a particular close race or some particular incident?
We were actually at that stage. We were reasonably dominant, so that we won the races by reasonably significant margins. I remember in 1968 when we were sort of planning to race in the Olympics, so we hadn't gone to the trials or anything. We had a really pretty phenomenal margin at that point, and that was a good experience. The boat felt fine, just wonderful, just cruising down the river. I remember my senior year row being, which was the only time I actually stroked this race, and just feeling like I wanted to be out further and pushing. And at the end, I think I felt I was really incredibly drained. It was the worst I felt after any race at that point. I don't know if it was a bug or something, but the last half mile of the race my senior year was one that I'd rather not remember. But it was we ended up winning, and it was great from that standpoint. But the races are generally, there's a whole phase to the race itself, where you are, and you got 20 minutes out there pulling as hard as you can. So it was I'm trying to remember any particular incidents. I think we had pretty decent weather most of the time. A lot of times the weather can be really horrible, particularly some of the races that run earlier in the afternoon before the wind dies down. We didn't have too much trouble with that. And I remember coming back, we raced downstream my senior year, and when we're done, instead of which is 4 miles down the river from the boathouse, so afterwards, instead of rowing back, it's pretty late, getting late at that point, we put the boat on top of the coach's launch. The coach's launch were much bigger back then, and we kind of cruised up the river. And I remember those moments with a reasonable amount of clarity and exhausted, not feeling all that well, but being very satisfied with the win at that point. So,
just one more question: how has rowing changed your life?
How has it changed during my life, or has it changed my life?
No, how has it changed your life personally?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it was a confidence builder. It was a chance to compete at a fairly high level. It was a chance to stretch the limits a little bit, see how far you could push things, and see what success you could achieve when you did do that. So I think all of that was very helpful, and I think just the camaraderie, the working together as a unit, was probably pretty good training. You have to bear with the 8 other rowers and coxswain in the boat, so that's not always easy, and so I think that's definitely a part of it too. But I think that the standard, in some sense, it would be almost a cliche to say it, but just sort of challenges, pushing yourself against challenges, and I think rowing has a very special way of doing that to an oarsman or oarswoman. It's also, I think you asked about why people get so dedicated to it. There's just a wonderful feeling in a boat when it's moving well, and all 8 or 4 or however many of you are working together, and it's kind of whole is greater than the sum of the parts kind of thing, and you're flying along, and it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful feeling. It's like, actually, I do remember Harry. Here's an anecdote about Harry. When we first, as freshmen, were sort of gathered together in Newell Boathouse to kind of the first recruiting meeting, and he was speaking to us, and he said that he was telling, I had rowed before I came to college, but a lot hadn't. We were just sort of trying to find out what what it was going to be all about. And he likened a well-pulled, a well-executed stroke to being like a well-executed golf swing. There's that feeling of satisfaction. You feel like you're doing it as you and the club, in a sense, are one, and the ball goes flying off into the distance. I remember telling that story. I think there's some truth to it. I'm not a golfer, but I can certainly sense that golfers do get that kind of experience out of it, that kind of enjoyment out of it. I think that's a major part of the rowing. Actually, in a way, it's a sad thing, because when I finally realized that I wasn't going to be able to have that sort of speed, when I got sort of past one's prime, there's a certain sadness knowing that you were never going to be able to have that kind of speed in a boat that you had before, but fond memories of having had that opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we're ready. Now the only other thing. Let's take those to this. Now we got some one bars over here.
We're not going to put any reds or blues in here, right?
We don't have to. We really just need the middle.
Yeah.
Just the yellows.
Right. That's not good stuff. Especially when it rains. So yellow, so we want to check red top and see if there's any fabric there.
Bottom a little bit, did we? Yeah, we apparently cracked the foot of the V, right? About 5 feet back from the bow. But they said it looked like it was been patched before, so it really
And as she's going, the boat is getting lower and lower in the water. And he's looking over the side to see if the
can't keep up with his own boat, right?
no, he was trying to get it to bail it out. You know, he's trying to make sure that. And then there's a rock over there. See that rock is painted? Yeah. And they battle over the rock. God, he's crawling along awful fast, isn't he? Railroad spikes driven into the pavement here of the parking lot. Do any of that. I don't know. No, I think he does, but just doesn't want it happening.
Oh. Well, he didn't go to Harvard.
He went to Penn.
Penn, yeah. And maybe that's part of the just doesn't.
Well, no, because Penn isn't that.
No, but it's just not a school.
They don't have this thing. The other Eastern schools are quite put out with us because we don't know the IRA. So it's interesting. Whenever you get one they say, now if we could scoot up a little closer to them, that would be great. Yeah, it really was.
But you guys are really good with chopsticks.
Right.
Don't you think that's a little narrow?
I think this lane is Harvard's lane.
Little sushi.
Let us drink the sushi.
Timber! He's really up on my tree. I think it's steep roots. No, I don't think it is steep roots.
Doing this kind of thing, bigger trees.
He looks like a bunch of leaves to us. He just looks like a bunch of leaves.